Mr. Rand, the president is arriving.
Just show the president into the library. An old habit that goes along with power. Keep him waiting.
Near the end of being there, during Ben Rand's funeral, while the president is busy delivering the eulogy, Ben's colleagues have more pressing matters. Debating the president's prospects in the upcoming election, they swiftly reach a consensus that with his political viability tenuous and his prospects for re-election questionable, there's only one person likely to reverse the current trend and save the day, Mr. Chauncey Gardner. How did they come to this conclusion? Was it solely because Ben believed that it was the only way to retain the White House? And why would Chance be a better choice than the current president? In the world of being there, knowing what we know, as viewers and readers, this may at first appear as a particularly dubious decision to advocate for Chance to become the commander-in-chief, leader of the free world. But upon reflection, I realized that Ben, as always, was right. Chance isn't just a good candidate. He is the absolutely ideal candidate. What follows is why I believe that Chance, played by Peter Sellers, would be a formidable contender, and why in any event he would make a far stronger leader than the incumbent president in being there, played by Jack Warden. Okay, for starters, Chance appears to have what the senior Bush, H.W. Bush, called the Big Mo. President Bush 41 considered this a vital component of successfully running for the highest office, momentum. By any standard, Chance's coming up party has been an unprecedented success. It's unusual for someone to be introduced to the American public by being quoted by the president, singled out as someone Americans should know about. Suddenly, people want to know who Chance is, especially because the president also mentions that Chance is a close friend of Benjamin Rand's. After the president's speech, Chance is a guest on the Gary Burns Show, and it goes well. The crowd seems to really take to Chance, reacting positively to whatever he has to say. After such an auspicious debut, Chance's Q rating would undoubtedly be stratospheric. The president's endorsement, and Chance's relationship with Ben Rand, played by Melvyn Douglas, and a memorable TV appearance are the gold standards. Everything's coming up roses at this stage.
I'd like very much to thank you for joining us on such short notice and filling in for the vice president.
On television, Chance appears unflappable, mature, and witty, displaying a kind of blissful Zen-like contentment.
Gary's ready for you now.
Yes.
Good luck. Being telecast into millions of homes does not seem to faze him in the slightest. For once, the hoopla is not an anticlimax. People want to know about Chance, and his late-night television debut is both memorable and funny. He does indeed seem like someone Americans would be interested in. Plus his message, quoted by the president and expanded upon by Gary Burns, played by Jerome Hellman, seems entirely organic, reasonable, inoffensive, and easy to grasp. Chance seems to send out a welcoming message to everyone. His is a big tent. People are looking for optimism during difficult economic times. During his TV appearance, Chance seems to be a ray of light in a moment of economic pessimism. Chance is the latest thing, a shiny new product which fascinates. He is courteous, attentive, and makes a fantastic first impression. Potentiality is enticing. People are curious. How exactly would Chance's presidency differ from the current president's? What kind of a president would Chance make? In the film, the current president lacks vigor and is almost entirely devoid of charisma. One of the first things he says,
"Well, Mr. Gardner, I'm a man who appreciates discussing a frank discussion,"
is a phrase as inarticulate and awkward as it is meaningless. He spends his time taking the temperatures of others, including Ben and Chance, hoping that they will tell him whether or not to attempt to stimulate the economy during the economic downturn. This is a feckless, insecure, vacillating politician entirely unsuited to leading others. He comes across as truly worn down, apparently suffering through all the worst indignities associated with age. For example, erectile dysfunction.
Is it me?
Taking up a hobby, model airplane assembly, to try to relax. Desperately and unsuccessfully trying to stay in shape. And even stopping by to commiserate with an elderly, dying friend. He may have once been a leader in the Senate, but this president is no longer that man. The most impressive thing about him in being there is the arrival of his entourage at the Rand's estate. After that, it's all downhill. The president himself appears unengaged, insincere, and unconvincing, as when he first sees Ben.
"You look terrific."
We know this is untrue, that Ben is not terrific, but consider the infinitely more adroit manner in which Chance handles the situation.
You look much better today, Ben.
Now this is true, that Ben appears to look better because of Nurse Teresa's efforts. Upon hearing this, Chance redirects his compliment.
Nurse Teresa did a very good job there.
Chance's interaction with Ben is honest and builds intimacy between them, with Ben wanting Chance to know the full extent of his illness.
It's all makeup. I didn't want the president to think I was going to die while he was talking to me.
Ben's decision to keep the president waiting is significant. Apparently, neither the presidency nor the president is intimidating to Ben. Conversely, the president appears more than a little threatened by Ben, since Ben's money and connections are needed for his re-election campaign. At first, the president does not know what to make of Chance's attendance at what was supposed to be a private meeting, so he makes the assumption that Chance is really important to Ben, both personally and in terms of his business interests. The president is baffled by Chance, but nevertheless decides to defer to Ben's better judgment on the matter.
Now, Ben, I was wondering if you had a chance to go.
When Chance starts answering to his own name, whenever the word chance is used as a synonym for opportunity, the president cannot totally discern why Chance is behaving in this manner. He seems to be wondering if Chance might not be having a little fun at his expense. Ben understands the dynamics of power better than anyone else. Symbolically and literally, the president has come to Ben, so the president will have to acknowledge Chance and be deferential towards him, even if he can't quite fathom Chance's unusual behavior.
On television, Mr. President, you look much smaller.
Waiting to receive the president, Ben stands like a parent, with his arms outstretched, so it feels a little like the president is a kid being reunited with his family after returning from summer camp. The president is respectful towards Ben, and perhaps a little afraid of displeasing him. It seems peculiar that the commander-in-chief wants Ben Rand, a dying man who's never held political office, to evaluate the text of his speech. Still, Ben is not the type to mince words.
Overall, pretty good. But I think, Mr. President, that it's very dangerous to play around with temporary measures at a time like this.
Shouldn't the president already know what he should do based on what his advisors think and, more importantly, on his personal ideology? The president seems altogether too concerned with optics and speeches, and Ben rebukes him for it.
And I know how difficult it is to be straightforward. But I tell you right now, Bobby,
the president does not seem capable of actually leading. Instead, he is concerned with doing whatever it takes to get a second term. In contrast, Chance seems entirely relaxed. Whether on TV or not, he always appears to be enjoying himself, getting the royal treatment from just about everybody. He's the man of the hour, in demand everywhere. Publishers want his words.
We can give you a 6-figure advance. I'll provide you with the very best ghostwriter proofreaders.
Reporters, his thoughts.
What we'd like to know are some facts.
Friends, his camaraderie.
Chauncey, up and around this morning, are you?
Women, his romantic interest.
Don't leave me alone with him for too long.
And Ben's pals, well, they mostly want a viable candidate to retain the White House, and for this, they need Chance's clean skin.
What about Chauncey Gardner? But what do we know of the man? Absolutely nothing. That could be an asset.
By any measure, Chance appears more engaged than the president. For example, he always listens intently to what others are saying. Additionally, people seem to gravitate towards Chance and trust him because he somehow comes across as more direct, authentic, and sincere than the president. And Chance tends to stick to what he knows best, gardening.
Young plants do much better if a person helps them.
Other people immediately perceive Chance's authenticity, that he is clearly a man who at some point had some dirt under his fingernails.
Oh, Chauncey, you have the gift of being natural. That's a great talent, my boy.
He's correct about Chance, and he's correct about it being a gift that certain great politicians possess. Chance is open with others, and they get some sense of who he actually is, distorted as it might be, mind you, by people's perceptions of reality. For example, that being well-dressed and distinguished-looking means that you're important with consequential things to say. The president, from what we've seen, is not blessed with that particular gift, the gift of being natural. Because of this, the president's statements often ring hollow.
To quote Mr. Gardner, As long as the roots of industry remain firmly planted in the national soil, the economic prospects are undoubtedly sunny.
The president lacks Chance's sincerity, and the reason is pretty simple. Chance means everything literally, whereas the president sees gardening as a way of explaining the economic downturn. So it's ultimately just a way of him justifying his decision to bite the bullet. He vows to rethink his position while searching for other, less invasive solutions to the country's economic woes. No one at First American Financial seems to be pleased by anything he's saying. They actually appear to be a little bored. The president is governing like a weather vane, so when Chance appears on television, the audience is amused by what they see as his cute response to Gary Burns' question about whether Chance concurs with the president's view.
Which view?
The knowing laughter implies that the general public does not have a clue where the president stands on matters of consequence. This is not leadership. The advantage of an ideology is that people know where you stand and how you arrived at your decision. Shockingly, the president does not seem to know where he stands on government intervention in economic affairs. It is equally shocking that the president either can't or won't make up his mind on which way he might be leaning until after he learns where Ben stands. And it is only when Chance appears to add his voice to Ben's,
In a garden, growth has its season.
that the president decides that he'll throw in with Ben and Chance. At this stage, he's nothing but a follower joining the crowd.
Coffin, I'll need some information on Mr. Chauncey Gardner's background.
Gardner, yes, sir.
At least in part, Chance's political viability stems from the president's incapacity to make common sense political decisions. For example, rushing to quote Chance on national television before precisely determining who he was moves Chance in a single afternoon from total anonymity to household name. After his appearance on the Gary Burns show, Chance emerges as a dynamic and enigmatic counterweight to the sitting president. He is calm and relaxed and self-assured, whereas the president appears as old and tired. People perceive Chance as being amusing, whereas the president is seen as tedious. Seeing Chance on TV for the first time is like watching a dynamic new athlete dominating his sport. Chance appears to be playing the game profoundly differently than other people would expect, precisely because he does not care about his popularity or electability. The president feels threatened by Chance's emergence as a national figure. In addition, domestic intelligence agents begin surveillance of Chance, but fail to learn anything significant. After Chance's triumph on television, the president begins to realize that Chance might be an impediment to a second term. He wants as much background information on Chance as possible. In contrast, Chance doesn't seem to think much about the president at all, except to tell people how much he enjoyed meeting him.
It was very nice meeting the president.
I like the president very much. He's a nice man.
The president becomes suspicious of the shocking lack of information on Chance. In the absence of any other logical explanation, the working assumption is that some entity, possibly a foreign government, must have deleted it from all government databases. But why?
What about the third question? Is it possible to erase all traces of a man?
Despite a thorough investigation, including computer analysis of Chance's syntax and vocabulary, absolutely no information emerges. The FBI cannot determine what part of the United States Chance came from. Even scrutiny of Chance's suits and underwear does not reveal anything germane. At the same time, the president feels so insecure that he begins to suffer from sexual impotence.
This never happened when you were a senator.
Perceiving that he has lost the support of Ben and his pals, the president has begun to feel politically vulnerable. Everyone knows that Ben only backs winners, and so he's put his money, the smart money, on Chance. The president's attempt to create a provocative soundbite only ends up making things worse for him, focusing attention where he least wants it, on his own lack of charisma. Mentioning Chance in his speech to the board of First American Financial Corporation reminds voters that there are other, more original and compelling leaders waiting to lead. Over time, the president becomes reconciled to the idea that the conspiracy, or at least what he sees as the conspiracy, to cover over Chance's origins has been so successful that Chance's true life story may never be known.
I'd like my eggs poached this morning, please.
When he first meets Chance, the president's reaction is about the same as everyone else's.
Well, Mr. Gardner, I must admit that is one of the most refreshing and optimistic statements I've heard in a very, very long time.
People seem to want, or perhaps need, Chance to be a kind of oracle, and it helps that people find him so likable and unassuming. Of course, his association with Ben Rand and the president is critical to his credibility as a national figure, but it goes further. Former Secretary of State Kissinger famously said that power is the ultimate aphrodisiac, and so it seems his proximity to power. What makes someone attractive to others is often intangible, hard to pin down, but whatever it is, Chance seems to have it. The combination of sudden fame, powerful friends, and a presumed knowledge of economic matters and world affairs makes him seem ultra-sophisto and cool. In the novel, Eve sees Chance as so detached and serene that she finds herself excited by the prospect of seducing him, seeing what it's like when he loses his composure. Of course, libido can only take you so far. When they first encounter him, Dr. Robert Allenby, Richard Dysart, and Eve Rand, Shirley MacLaine, cannot really agree on much about Chance, with Eve arguing...
No, he's very, intense.
And the doctor disagreeing.
Actually, I found him to have quite a sense of humor.
Somehow, Chance subsists as two different beings simultaneously. Initially interpreted by Dr. Allenby as being a clever patient with interesting banter, Eve, in contrast, experiences Chance as a strong, sexual, cerebral man. This capacity for his first impression to cut in different directions would make Chance the ideal politician. Being all things to all people is how national elections are won. Working in Chance's favor here is his disinclination towards abstraction. He's 100% literal, largely incapable of recognizing, much less generating humor, irony, symbolism, and so forth. The media interprets this as Chance trying to keep things simple, so that the general public will follow what he's trying to say. One newspaper labels it Chance's peculiar brand of optimism. Ms. Hayes, a lawyer Chance encounters in the first minutes of the film, sums up what she felt was going on during the TV interview, what she sees cynically as Chance's broader strategy.
Oh, he was very clever, keeping it at a third-grade level. That's what they understand.
Though the interpretation with regard to Chance is incorrect, both the newspaper and Ms. Hayes nevertheless have a point. Political campaigns tend to work best when the ideas under consideration are simple and catchy, and they should be repeated in the mass media ad infinitum. In order to communicate with millions of people, there has to be a hopeful message, and that is where Chance's peculiar brand of optimism comes in. It seems ready-made for a national campaign. If you're going to be identified with something, it seems advantageous that it contain an element of optimism. Though Chance is decidedly not drawing a parallel between the seasons and the economy, since everything is literal to Chance, others see it differently. To them, Chance's words are figurative and convey an inherently hopeful message about better times ahead. It would be hard to attract voters without such a message. Ben puts it simply.
He makes me feel good.
To want to vote for a candidate, people have to identify with the characteristics which make that particular candidate unique. Things like their peculiar brand of optimism. Part of Chance's appeal, of course, isn't just he himself, but also the company he keeps. In the novel, Ambassador Vladimir Skrapinov, portrayed by Richard Basehart in the movie, is an indispensable part of Chance's rise to prominence. As in the film, the ambassador is immediately taken with Chance after he mistakenly concludes that they share an affinity for the fables of Ivan Krylov. Again, in the course of the novel, Ambassador Skrapinov decides to mention Chance in a speech to the Mercantile Association in Philadelphia. In his speech, the ambassador characterizes Chance as an exemplar of a new kind of American leader, less a traditional politician and more of an enlightened statesman, responsive to change, less ideologically driven, and truly flexible in matters of social policy. The national news broadcasts immediately note that within 48 hours, Chance has been mentioned by both the president and Ambassador Skrapinov. In the novel, pictures of Chance from the reception for the ambassador appear in the news media, and the American public rapidly becomes familiar with Chance. In his secret report, Ambassador Skrapinov describes his new friend as being highly educated, cultured, and politically shrewd. It is clear that he thinks that such a man might be willing to play ball with the Soviet Union. When the ambassador requests information on Chance, things like his family, his education, his exact relationship with the Rands, he is informed that there is no record of him anywhere. They have no specifics. However, Soviet psychiatrists nevertheless conclude that Chance is among the most emotionally mature and well-adjusted American public figures. Again, in the novel, the Soviets reach their own conclusions about Chance. They postulate that he is part of an incredibly well-orchestrated coup d'etat. Ultimately, the head of the foreign section in the embassy, Sulkin, congratulates Ambassador Skrapinov on what he calls the ambassador's sharp Marxist instinct, having the foresight to befriend an American leader who is clearly on the rise. The advantage of having no traceable personal history is that all your past misdeeds would never come back to haunt you. So in Chance's case, it offers a double kind of safety. In addition to there being no record of his existence, he did nothing disqualifying in the first place. In running for political office, Chance's lack of any history would be an especially huge advantage over other candidates. For example, he's never had a DUI or injured another person in a traffic accident. And it goes much further than that.
I've never been allowed outside of the house.
Cloistered with Louise, Ruth Attaway, and the old man, Chance was protected from nearly everything. He was never sexually involved with an intern nor accused of plagiarism while attending university. In essence, Chance's closets have few skeletons to speak of. There are simply no catastrophic decisions to limit his political potential. Ben's colleagues seem to get this. They see Chance as a man who is uniquely unburdened by the usual humiliations and failures, liberated from what they imagine to be setbacks, unwise decisions, and dysfunctional relationships. No experience, a blank page to them, is the ultimate resume since it contains no record of failure. In addition, his actual life should serve him quite well. He's in good health from a lifetime of working outside in the fresh air. He doesn't appear to smoke too much or drink too much. He appears exceptionally virile, and others seem to recognize this.
Give me your hand. Let me feel your strength.
During his interaction with Ms. Hayes, played by Fran Brill, Chance discloses that he hasn't ever seen a doctor or dentist.
I have no doctor or dentist.
So we can surmise he's in good health. Even-tempered, he never gets angry or impatient. He does indeed appear to be well-adjusted, as the Soviet report suggests. It also seems significant that Chance is prone to neither subterfuge nor vindictiveness, and so he is unlikely to lead the nation into a crisis or cover-up. Compared to the sitting president, Chance's political instincts, or naturally occurring, call it political DNA, are unbeatable. For example, when Gary Burns asks Chance to describe what kind of gardener he is, Chance doesn't say that he's the best or the smartest or the most talented gardener. He just speaks the literal
What
truth.
sort of gardener would you be, Mr. Gardner?
I am a very serious gardener.
Oh, I'm sure you are, Mr. Gardner.
It is the politically perfect answer. Voters want a serious person to lead them. Chance has great instincts and timing. He always manages to come up with the right answer at the right moment. This happens when Ambassador Skrapinov remarks to Chance that their two systems of government are not so far apart.
We are not so far from each other. Our chairs are almost touching.
Bravo.
Beyond his propitious comic timing, or what passes for it, there are a lot of other reasons that a Chance candidacy might work. One reason is that running for president oftentimes has to do with how voters feel about you personally. One might presume that policy would matter more, but it is not always the case. If Johanna Franklin, played by Denise DeBerry, is any indication, Chance might do quite well as a national candidate.
He's a real gardener.
You can
He does
watch
talk
your
like
garden
one.
become very beautiful.
But I think he's brilliant.
In the novel, she adds that Chance is totally authentic, manly, well-groomed, and decidedly not a phony. Chance would be a strong candidate not only because he attracts people to him, but more importantly because he does not tend to offend anyone. The right word here might be anodyne or inoffensive. When people meet Chance, they seem to have a sense that they have been both seen and heard. His replies seem refreshingly direct and sincere. Despite a lifetime confined within the old man's house, working in the garden and watching TV, it turns out that Chance is actually surprisingly good when dealing with people directly. In the novel, in the aftermath of his appearance on television, one of the Rand's servants feels that he has to show Chance his gratitude. He says, "Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Just thank you from a simple man who's seen a lot." Somehow Chance's very presence soothes people. Ben expresses it best when he tells Dr. Allenby,
There's something about him that I trust.
this could make one hell of a slogan for Chance's campaign posters. It would be something like, if Ben Rand trusts Chauncey Gardner, shouldn't you? Once again, without knowing much about politics, it turns out that Chance was born with an odd flair for the retail version of it. Smiling at strangers, chatting amiably, listening intently, and making innocuous statements.
Vladimir Skrapinov.
That's a very nice name.
All come quite naturally to Chance. And if a movie is about that which most frequently appears on the screen, then being there is mostly about gardening and shaking hands.
Hello, Thomas. I'm Chance the gardener.
Well, good day, Mr. Chance.
Good day, Sally. Hello, Vladimir.
Chauncey?
Bobby.
Regardless who he's meeting, Chance is always welcoming. With the ambassador's wife, Natasha Skrapinov, played by Hannah Harlandy, Chance is exceedingly affable.
Natasha,
Hello, Natasha.
very nice meeting you.
And you.
He has perfected the art of the handshake greeting and the attitude of openness that ideally accompanies it. And at that moment, he is sincerely happy to know Natasha, and she in turn feels Chance's sincerity. Chance has several other techniques which will translate quite nicely into politics. For example, he likes to demonstrate to others that he's following things by repeating exactly what they've just said. Here he employs the verbatim technique with Dr. Allenby.
By the way, Mr. Gardner, I'd like to ask you something straight out.
Straight out.
Yes, sir.
Whenever it is required, Chance is quite adept at feigning interest in what people are saying. He alternates between the phrases, I understand,
Yes, Thomas, I understand.
or I see,
Sophie insists on black tie.
I see.
or sometimes I will.
You work on the idea. Walter,
I will, Ben.
Whenever Chance employs one of these phrases, he actually means the opposite. That is, he does not follow and is not interested in what is being discussed. In the course of the film, Chance successfully uses these phrases, which he undoubtedly picked up from TV, to convince others that he knows what they are talking about.
But what caught Gary's interest was your down-to-earth philosophy.
I see.
The final method is just to agree wholeheartedly.
I must be going. This visit has been most enlightening.
Yes, it has.
On television and elsewhere, Chance seems so sure of what he's saying that it infuses others with confidence. In the Kaczynski novel, at a dinner party, a woman confronts Chance. What about the war, she asks. Chance answers, the war? Which war? I've seen many wars on television. The woman is intrigued by Chance's answer. To millions, she says, the war is just another TV program. But out there at the front, real men are giving their lives. To her, Chance seems to be arguing that since most Americans will never be asked to fight in a war, faraway battlefields appear as only another type of TV programming, never tangible to viewers. In such a society, it is much easier for the carnage of war to go entirely unnoticed. Of course, Chance did not mean to convey any of this to the woman at the party, but he somehow managed to in any event. Another part of what makes Chance a compelling candidate is his capacity to have things all his own way with regard to the mass media. On one hand, the press feels compelled to follow Chance around, since he appears to be a mover and shaker in domestic policy. Also, the reporters are aware that readers and viewers want to know more about this enigmatic man. They have to pursue him. To do otherwise would be irresponsible. Chance is a major story. We see them telephoning Chance at the Rands and interviewing him outside the reception for Ambassador Skrapinov. On the other hand, of course, Chance is particularly dismissive of the media, or at least it appears that way to others, since he'll tell anyone who will listen that he does not read papers.
Mr. Gardner, what was your reaction to the Post's editorial on the president's speech?
I did not read that.
Then Chance is asked if he glanced at it.
I did not glance at it.
Dissing the press has a long tradition of success in American electoral politics. It's always been a reliable method of currying favor with the electorate. To the reporters present, Chance would appear to be doing this quite skillfully, yet they can't really condemn him for it. He seems to be answering their questions honestly. If he didn't glance at the news story, he didn't glance at the story. They can't make him react. Of course, he's not trying to, but like so much of what Chance does, the appearance of disrespecting the newspaper reporters works like a charm. No doubt a lot of voters would immediately take notice of this and like this about Chance. They might feel that Chance speaks for them, those who believe that the press has too much power. And many might feel similarly to the television reporter in Being There, played by Laurie Jefferson, who opines that Chance is incredibly courageous for admitting how little interest he has in the newspaper's coverage of events.
Few men in public life have the courage not to read the newspapers. None that this reporter has met have the guts to admit it.
Chance owns the press so thoroughly that one imagines that if he questioned the accuracy of their reporting, essentially telling them, "I'm not the man you say I am," that the press's answer would be something like, "You're being too hard on yourself," followed by a rhetorical question. Are not all political personas essentially invented identities? Because of the reverence with which Chance's pronouncements are greeted, his words inevitably have implications. Although he is not saying anything of the sort, he could appear to be arguing that the press is so untrustworthy and biased as to be beneath his notice. One is better off ignoring them. Chance's honesty makes it appear that he's handling the situation, like all the others, with great subtlety. He implies, he doesn't push. He isn't telling you not to read the press. He is just telling you that he personally doesn't read the print media. You are free to make what you will of this.
Have you read the newspapers?
I do read papers, Eve.
The manner in which Chance comports himself makes him appear as a confident, mature adult, someone not particularly concerned with what anyone else thinks. Successful politicians all seem to possess this trait. Eve says it best.
Chauncey, I've never seen anyone handle the press the way you do. You're so cool and detached.
The press seems to be intimidated by Chance, as when he abruptly hangs up on the financial editor of the Washington Post, played by John Harkins.
Quick question, Mr. Gardner.
Such rudeness is interpreted by the editor as indicating Chance's social confidence. Chance doesn't mean to create such a power imbalance, but the way he comports himself confuses people. Chance is being represented as a man of importance, and he is treated accordingly. The press are in awe of him to the degree that they feel he knows more than they do. Thus, who are they to criticize him? They're just reporters, whereas Chance is a close friend and advisor of Benjamin Rand's. The further irony here is that the press is the main enabler of Chance. They reinforce the idea of Chauncey Gardner as a political entity. They're the gatekeepers responsible for telling people who Chance is and why the president chooses to listen to his advice. The press assumes a great many things and does not always have the time to check facts.
You're described as one of the principal architects of the president's speech last night, and your comments on the television show are side by side quoted with the president's.
Oh. In the Kaczynski novel, at the conclusion of the television interview, as Chance departs the stage, the host pays tribute to him. Chauncey Gardner, financier, presidential advisor, and true statesman. Viewers, in turn, make an assumption that the information reported by the news media is accurate. This can be a problem since Chance is a very different person than the charismatic leader that they're making him out to be, yet his impassivity just adds to his mystique, that he's someone who has his act together and is in total control of his life. Though much of this is an illusion which others refuse to see, some of it isn't. For example, that Chance doesn't really spend much of his time worrying, that he tends to take life as it comes, without expectations. That is perhaps the most important reason why Chance might be a really hard candidate to defeat in a general election. Everything about him seems to mitigate against other candidates. While others typically expend a great deal of energy worrying about what's being said and written about them, Chance manages to simply float along, a natural buoyancy carrying him through life. He is so honest, amiable, and open that no one perceives him as a threat. For example, whenever Chance is asked about the president, he immediately replies that he likes the president personally and that the president is a very nice man. Of course, political insiders might perceive or really misperceive this quite differently, as though Chance is playing the long game. It remains the case that if Chance were actually interested in any of this, power for its own sake, and tried to wrestle the nomination away from the president, it would disqualify him from seeking the presidency. He would be seen as just another Ted Kennedy, seeking to unseat a sitting president of his own party. But Chance is so completely sincere about actually liking the current president that he does not seem to want, nor does he actually want, to supplant the man as chief executive. Chance's basic nature makes him appear, accurately as it turns out, as someone disinterested in political power. This in turn convinces people that he would be someone they could trust with power. Chance is incapable of self-aggrandizement. Unlike most men, absolute power would probably not change Chance in any substantive way. Somehow, without intending to, Chance has reversed the political process which normally rewards unrestrained ego and ambition. Instead, it would appear to insiders that Chance was campaigning by not campaigning, running while not running, and seeking the presidency by repeating how much he likes the current resident of the White House. Once such a non-campaign campaign got rolling, it would be impossible to stop. He would have the Big Mo working in his favor. So there you have it. My take on why Chance, in the world of being there, would make a formidable candidate. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section, and don't forget to press subscribe or like, or both. The Being There videos have been fun to create, and I appreciate your many positive and supportive comments.
He's a decent fellow, isn't he, the president?
Yes. I'm glad he came, Ben.
Just prior to his tragic death from aplastic anemia, noted American entrepreneur and philanthropist, Mr. Benjamin Turnbull Rand, gave permission for his personal words to be used to endorse the candidacy of his close friend and advisor, Mr. Chauncey Gardner.
Chauncey. You know, Robert, there's something about him that I trust. He makes me feel good.
Chauncey Gardner. If Ben Rand trusts him, shouldn't you? For a healthier and more prosperous America, vote Chauncey for president.